On a crisp autumn evening in 2023, in the quiet suburb of Maple Grove, Illinois, I faced my worst nightmare. The HOA president, Evelyn Carter, tried to slip into my house with her master key. When it failed, she dialed 911, unaware that my daughter, Mia, was the dispatcher on the other end. The only thing Evelyn broke that night was my last shred of patience. Let me take you back to how it all began. I was in the kitchen, slicing tomatoes for a sandwich, when I heard Ida faint, insistent jiggling at the front door. It wasn't my wife Laura's gentle touch or my own clumsy rattle. It was sharp, impatient, like someone who thought they owned the place. My heart skipped a beat. I set the knife down and tiptoed to the foyer, peering through the peephole. There she was, Evelyn, the iron-fisted ruler of our homeowners association, her face taut with determination, like a hawk eyeing its prey. She fumbled with a key, her lips pressed into a thin, furious line. She tried again, but the lock held firm. I'd swapped it out days earlier for this exact reason. A strange calm settled over me as I watched her hiss in frustration and pull out her phone. What she didn't know was that Mia, my daughter, 3 weeks into her 911 dispatcher job, was about to take her call. Evelyn's arms flailed, her voice a dramatic wail as she spun her tail for the operator. I cracked the door open mid-rant, leaning casually against the frame. "Looking for something, Evelyn?" I asked, my tone dripping with mock boredom. Her jaw snapped shut, but she recovered fast, screeching into the phone, "He's here. The intruder's here." I raised an eyebrow. An intruder in my own home? That was bold, even for her. "He's threatening me," she gasped, clutching her chest like I'd lunged at her with a machete. From upstairs, Laura called down. "Mark, who's at the door?" Before I could answer, Evelyn escalated. "There's a whole gang. Send the SWAT team." I almost laughed. A SWAT team for a guy in a flannel shirt holding a half-made sandwich? She was unhinged. Through the phone, I heard Mia's voice, calm and professional, barely hiding her amusement. "Ma'am, can you describe the intruder?" Evelyn's eyes gleamed with triumph. "He's tall, mid-50s, graying hair, smug as hell." Guilty on that last one, I thought, flashing her a grin. Mia, sharp as ever, asked for the address. Evelyn barked it out, 312 Oakwood Drive. A long pause followed. I could picture Mia at her console, smirking as she recognized our address. "Stay on the line, ma'am," she said, her voice now laced with the quiet thrill of a trap closing. She'd flagged the call as a high-priority disturbance, dispatching units while keeping Evelyn talking. Minutes dragged like hours. Evelyn stood on my lawn, phone glued to her ear, glaring at me like I might vanish in a puff of smoke. Laura joined me, tying her rope. "What's going on?" she whispered. "Our HOA dictator's having a meltdown," I replied. She tried her key. It failed, and now I'm the bad guy. Laura's eyes narrowed, but a small smile tugged at her lips. She trusted me to handle this, or at least to fake it convincingly. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Evelyn's face lit up, thinking she'd won. 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop, lights flashing red and blue across the quiet street. Officers stepped out, hands near their holsters, eyeing the scene. Evelyn, ranting on the lawn, and me, a middle-aged guy in slippers, leaning in my doorway. They looked puzzled. This wasn't a break-in, it was a circus. "He's the one," Evelyn shrieked, pointing at me. "He broke in." The lead officer, a no-nonsense woman, approached her. "Ma'am, calm down." Then she turned to me. "Sir, what's happening here?" Before I could speak, another car pulled UPA plain sedan. Mia stepped out, her dispatcher badge clipped to her belt, exuding quiet authority. She locked eyes with Evelyn. "Ma'am, I was the dispatcher on your call," she said, her voice like ice. "You reported an intruder at this address. Is that correct?" Evelyn's face paled. She stammered, realizing her mistake. "This is your father's house, isn't it?" the officer asked Mia, piecing it together. "It is," Mia replied. "And this woman tried to enter illegally with an HOA key. When it didn't work, she filed a false report. That's a felony." The word hit like a thunderclap. Evelyn's bravado collapsed. Neighbors peeked from their windows, witnessing her public unraveling. But I knew her too well. The fire in her eyes wasn't go night, was smoldering, plotting her next move. When Laura and I moved to Maple Grove, we thought we'd found our slice of heaven. A cozy 2-story with a maple tree out front, nestled by a serene pond. I'd spent decades as a forensic accountant, untangling financial webs spun by crooks. I was done with that life, ready for quiet evenings with Laura. For a while, it was perfect. We met the neighbors, old Mr. Thompson, who'd lived here forever, a young family with noisy kids, and Greg, a quirky retired mechanic obsessed with UFOs and homemade lemonade. Then there was Evelyn. At our first neighborhood barbecue, she materialized, clutching a clipboard like a scepter, her husband Victor trailing her like a sullen shadow. "Welcome," she said, her tone more threat than greeting. "I assume you've read the HOA bylaws." I grinned. Every page. The section on approved fence heights? Riveting. Laura elbowed me. Evelyn didn't blink. "The rules keep this place civilized," she snapped, storming off with Victor in tow. The fine started soon after. Our Live, Laugh, Love doormat was deemed non-compliant, $25. Our garden squirrel, affectionately named Chester, was an unauthorized ornament, $50. We paid to avoid trouble, but the rules grew absurd. Trash cans precisely 2.5 feet from the curb, holiday lights down after 10 days. Evelyn patrolled daily, Victor looming behind her, intimidating anyone who dared complain. Most neighbors complied, cowed by stories of the Wilsons, who fought a fine over their mailbox and ended up with a towed car and legal fees that forced them to sell. The real trouble hit when I caught Evelyn on our doorbell camera, sneaking into our house with her master key. She was in and out in seconds, not stealing, just testing her power. Laura was livid. "I don't feel safe, Tom," she said. That night, I bought a heavy-duty deadbolt, installing it with a sense of defiance. This was our home. Evelyn wasn't welcome. A week later, she tried her key again. When it failed, her empire of control cracked. The 911 fiasco followed, and for a few days, peace returned. Greg even put a tiny cowboy hat on his illegal birdhouse to celebrate. But Evelyn wasn't done. A certified letter arrived, thick with legal jargon. Our prized lilac bushes, Laura's pride and joy, were now too tall, under a new bylaw passed in a shady, late-night HOA meeting. The fine? $10,000. If unpaid, they'd slap a lien on our house. This wasn't a fine, it was a vendetta. I went to Greg first. He'd been at the meeting, a farce with only Evelyn, Victor, and a spineless board member named Harold. "It was a setup, Tom," Greg said. I tried to fight it, but Victor's stare shut me up. At the next HOA meeting, I laid out my case calmly, rationally showing how Evelyn's rule was personal. Neighbors nodded, but fear silenced them. Evelyn smirked, dismissing me. The rule stands. The fine stands. Victor's smug grin said it all. They held all the power. I was done playing their game. The forensic accountant in me woke up. I requested HOA financial records, citing state law. Evelyn's lawyer stonewalled, claiming my request was burdensome. So, I dug deeper, talking to the Wilsons, who'd lost their home to a mysterious cash buyer, Greenleaf Holdings LLC. Mr. Thompson recalled similar stories, families driven out by fines, their homes snapped up cheap. Greg, with his conspiracy-loving brain, showed me a map. Every targeted house bordered an old service road. A pattern emerged. Using my old PI license, I traced Greenleaf to a P.O. box, but the tax records listed an address I knew well, Evelyn and Victor's house at 320 Oakwood Drive. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just bullying, it was a predatory scheme. Evelyn used fines to bankrupt homeowners, and Victor, a licensed realtor, brokered the sales to their shell company. Our lilacs were just the latest step in stealing our home. Then came the bombshell. The service road led to a town-owned plot where Councilman Richard Hayes, a local hero with a billboard smile, had pushed for a luxury mall. The zoning board rejected it, citing no access road. But if Greenleaf owned the bordering homes, they could bulldoze them for a new road, unlocking a multi-million-dollar deal. Evelyn and Victor were pawns. Hayes was the kingpin. Going to the police would take months, leaving neighbors like Mrs. Larson, an elderly widow, vulnerable. I decided to fight fire with fire. I enlisted Mrs. Larson, who was being harassed over her non-compliant mailbox. We'd stage a fake sale of her home, luring Victor into a trap. Greg played a flamboyant buyer in a garish suit, offering a lowball cash deal. Hidden cameras and mics were set. Victor took the bait, offering $5,000 more through Greenleaf, still far below market value. We had him on tape, smugly naming his company. The closing was set for a Friday at Mrs. Larson's. Everything was ready until Hayes himself walked in, his polished charm masking panic. "You idiot," he hissed at Victor. "I told you to be discreet." He offered Mrs. Larson $200,000 to fix the deal, unaware of the cameras. When she refused, his mask slipped. "That's a bad decision," he growled. I texted Mia, "Lilacs." I burst into the room with Laura, who was filming. Greg followed, brandishing a bag of mulch like a sword. "You mess with us, you mess with Maple Grove," he bellowed. Sirens wailed. Mia arrived with 4 officers. Victor tried to flee but was tackled by Mia in a swift move that made me proud. Hayes tried to talk his way out, but the evidence papers, checks, and video was undeniable. Evelyn arrived, her world collapsing as she saw Victor and Hayes in cuffs. "You did this," she spat at me. "No," I said. "You did." The fallout was swift. Victor spilled everything, implicating Hayes as the mastermind. The mall scheme unraveled, and charges piled up: fraud, extortion, racketeering. The HOA was dissolved, liens voided, and Greenleaf's homes were returned to their owners. The Wilsons moved back, and we threw a block party, Greg in his absurd suit, leading the cheers. Evelyn and Victor's home was seized, and they left in disgrace. A new HOA formed, transparent and fair. I declined a board seat. My fighting days were done. Sitting on my porch with Laura, watching the sunset over the pond, I felt peace. We'd fought for our home, our neighbors, our community. But questions linger, and I want your thoughts. Was I right to take justice into my own hands, risking everything for a sting? Should I have trusted the system instead? Could Evelyn and Victor have been victims of Hayes' ambition, or were they just as guilty? Drop your comments, hit like, and subscribe. You need to talk about this.